On today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Flip and Steele, we are diving deep into Wednesday's 4-game betting and DFS board and doing a little trade deadline look ahead for two guys on the trade bubble.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Hump Day, everybody, and welcome back to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with your boy Big Flip and Mr. Steele Roden. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. You know where to find us across all the platforms you find your favorite content. Thank you so much for the support. On today's episode, we are fired up as usual and a little extra fired up because we will be taking a look at a little trade deadline look ahead with two guys who are on the trade bubble, Steele. Two guys that have had very similar type season and two guys that are going to have a lot of teams looking at them. That's coming up first. Later in the show, you know what we'll be doing. We'll be feeding you the locks. We'll be feeding you the picks. We'll be feeding you those DFS targets, and we always have your back on that front. And thank you for having our back. Thank you for subscribing, following, and showing us love. Mr. Roden, Steele, my brother, it's Wednesday, episode number 25 of the reboot of this show. I'm always fired up. I'm a big, loud guy. Here we go. Trade deadline, look ahead. Welcome back, brother. Thank you for being here with me as always.
Always happy to be back here with you, Flip. Look, we've talked about a couple of guys on the trade list already ahead of the trade deadline on March 25th, March 26th. So we got to talk about these two guys. They've had a really, really good week, the past 2 weeks, actually, and they've stepped up big for the teams. They're on the trade deadline. Their name is definitely going up and up this list. A lot of people, talking about these guys now.
Yes, sir.
Jake Debrusk of the Boston Bruins has definitely elevated his game over the last week, ever since joining that top line of Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron. I like what Bruce Cassidy has done, kind of spreading the love throughout his lineup, dropping David Pastrnak to the second line, playing with Taylor Hall and Eric Haula. So definitely being able to spread the love for the Bruins has helped them a lot, and it's really helped Jake Debrusk's game as well. So he's got 14 goals, 24 points on the season. He's always been a 20 goal scorer, 40 to 50 points a year tops. So definitely a super, super great depth guy to have on your team. This kid has a lot of potential to be a productive top six forward, but he's never really gotten the chance or the opportunity to play for long stretches with the top line.
He's had some looks. He's had some looks.
He's had some looks, but when he's had those looks, he hasn't taken, the best chances and opportunity to showcase what he can do. This last week, he really has done that. He's got 7 goals, 9 points in his last 5 games ever since Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron have come back into the lineup, and him stepping into that top line with them has definitely just been one of the best times that we've seen him on the ice. So he's definitely elevating his, stock for trade value.
Definitely.
And look, he's got 285 fantasy points on the season. And we've seen this with guys like, for example, I kind of compare it to a guy like Michael Bunting of the Toronto Maple Leafs. If he wasn't playing on that top line right now with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, his productivity would not be the same as it is as we've seen this entire season. So Jake DeBrusk, that top line has really elevated his game. And I like the way he's played this last week. It's definitely elevated his, status going into the trade deadline.
Now, let me get right into this, Steele. And I'm glad that you finish off your points there because you added really in the nice layers of how good Jake DeBrusk has been and the move that the front office in Boston made, to almost showcase this guy, right? To put him up on that top line where he can succeed and insert him right into David Pasternak's spot right at a good time when Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron were returning from an injury and a suspension. So we talked about that little bit of a, almost a break for them to come back. Really ingenious move by the Bruins. But what I want to ask you is this. Are they showcasing him for a trade right away? Probably looked like it. Probably let's see what he can do up there. But now that he's played so well, Steele, he's a nitty-gritty forward. He gets in those dirty places and he mucks it up. Now, though, what I'd like to ask you is, after he's played so well, sure, you were showcasing him, but are you going to hold on to him now?
Look, if I'm the Boston Bruins, it's definitely, in my head heading in to the
Right?
trade deadline. Do I send this guy off? I was looking at some teams that Jake Debrusk would be a good fit for. I was looking at the Nashville Predators where, they want to be shipping out Phil Forsberg. They're really trying to get him on the move. Looking at the Philadelphia Flyers as well. I think that would be a great fit for Jake Debrusk. Philadelphia over the last couple of years has really lost their identity. They used to be a big physical team, very tough to play against. And ever since, I don't know, I want to say 3 years ago, they've really lost their identity. They need to get that back. And like you just said, Jake Debrusk is a gritty physical guy that can be that type of guy for Philadelphia. Obviously, he's not going to be a superstar or an absolute stud offensively, but he can chip in and be a top six forward for the Philadelphia Flyers. But again, if you're the Boston Bruins right now, because he's playing so well, do you want to ship him out? It's a tough decision.
And I wonder when it comes to the Philadelphia Flyers, if they're just not completely like Giroux's going to be the move and then they roll over and just reset and see what happens in the offseason. But either way, Jake Debrusk is going to have eyes on him. And maybe if you're the Boston Bruins, you look at this from a sell high perspective, right? His value 2 weeks ago would have been rock bottom, bag of pucks kind of move, right? Now, all of a sudden, the Bruins have, of course, an advantageous situation going into the trade deadline, which they're almost usually always active in. So I can't help but feel that they might sell high on a guy like Jake Debrusk. But another intriguing situation because of how poorly he played up until just 2 weeks ago. And it's the other guy we're looking at in terms of this trade deadline look ahead and what these trades could mean for these players' fantasy values. Debrusk is killing it right now, but if he goes somewhere, we talked about it, his overall fantasy value will continue to go up. Similar type season for a guy like Jakob Chychrun, who his name has been swirled around probably the most out of any player, especially any D-man. But, he's also had a really, really bad season up until very recently. Arguably, he's coming off his best game of the season on Sunday, where he had a goal, an assist, 2 penalty minutes, and 3 shots on net. He was +2. So if he can continue to find his game, he's 6'2", workhorse, can play the physical game, can lay the body, and he has a big shot from the point. I love this kind of player. If you're a fan of a team who needs a D-man, I'd be excited about adding a guy like Jakob Chychrun, who you can't help but feel a change of scenery might be a boom situation for his fantasy value.
Look, and here's the thing, and I was looking at the numbers for Jakob Chychrun, and besides last year, he was about the only guy last year who had a really, really good season. 41 points in the season, his career best. Before that, every single season that he's had before that 41-point season, he's only a 20-point guy. Like he's only had 20 to 30 points in a season before 2020. He's owned at 54% on Yahoo, 72% on ESPN. And you literally just said what I had in my notes. If he gets moved to a different team, that could light his entire game up and really bring out the full potential of Jakob Chychrun that we haven't seen before. I have in my notes right here, the Arizona Coyotes have held him back for far too long right now. And it's been an absolute joke to watch that organization the last couple of years. It's literally where player contracts and retirees kind of go to fade away into the distance. Like, over the years, they've taken on Pavel Datsyuk, Chris Pronger's contracts. Those contracts just go there to die. And that's what happens with some, top tier NHL players' careers. Phil Kessel, for example, he's in there right now. He needs to get out of Arizona. Clayton Keller, if he wants to, do what's best for him, he's got to get out of there. And
everybody just jump ship.
Everybody jump ship. And that's what Jakob Chychrun needs to do right now. If he's going to get traded, it's going to happen. A lot of teams are pursuing him. The Florida Panthers, the New York Rangers, many more. But again, if he were to be traded, it's going to elevate his game so much. And he's going to become a 40-point consistent player in the NHL.
100%. It's going to elevate his game. It's going to elevate his fantasy value to a point where you're going to want to take stock. I mentioned it yesterday in terms of, a game-changing trade for your fantasy, the stretch of your fantasy season. Look at some of these. Look at Debrusk. They're playing well. If they move to a good team, they might even continue to play even better. Who knows? Chemistry could be an issue there. We know where chemistry isn't an issue. It's right in the heart of Built Bars, where they are made of 100% real chocolate. Man, that was a solid segue. Just like Built Bars, solid. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They are downright better. We know a typical doo-doo candy bar can run you anywhere between 200 and 300 calories. Believe me, I just smashed one. I feel like garbage. I should have had a Built Bar. Go to Built.com, scroll down the macros chart. You'll be blown away. I say it every week. High protein, low cal, high fiber, low carb. What else do you need me to say? Capiche? Most Built Bars contain 130 calories. Double that or more for your average candy bar. And don't get it twisted. The flavors are fire. Mint brownie, coconut almond. You know what Steele's favorite is? White chocolate cookies and cream. There's lots more. They're all delicious. At Built, they make it taste good first and worry about making it healthy second. And I don't know how they do it, but they do it both every single time. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off.
Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. For your next listen, you have to go check out Locked On Now. Nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. You don't want to miss out on all the highlights. It's awesome. It's free and available on all podcast platforms, just like this podcast right here. So please hammer that subscribe, hammer the follow button. We appreciate all the support and the love you give us out there. Thank you so much for supporting us all the time. We're going to get into the DFS segment right here. 4 games on the schedule for Wednesday night. I'm looking at 2 in particular right here, Flip. I wonder what you're thinking as well, but I have to start off with obviously the Nashville Predators versus Seattle Kraken game.
That's where I'm
this
going.
time, I'm not going to be talking about the Seattle Kraken. Not for me this time, Flip.
We're both going to talk about the same thing again? Shocker.
Hey, man, like you can't leave your notes wide open or else I'm going to steal them from you. I just got to, well, look. I've talked a lot about the Seattle Kraken, about some of their top 4. Jared McCann, he's out on the IR right now, so I can't talk about him.
Pour one out.
R.I.P. Yeah. But look, Seattle Kraken, they're just not a good team. No. And, Nashville, they have not been great in the last couple of weeks. They need to turn things around. This is definitely a game where they should win. I feel like I've said that a lot, and then the team doesn't end up winning. We said that
That's okay.
But it's okay. Nashville Predators need to win this game.
Trust the process, baby. Trust the process.
So for DFS, for daily fantasy, I got to go with guys where they bring some value, but they're not overly expensive. I would like to go with guys like Matt Duchene, Philip Forsberg, and you obviously, of course, you can do that. I'm looking at that second line, Luke Kunin and Ryan Johansson. Those guys are not going to be overly expensive, especially Kunin. He's got 19 points on the season, but this guy plays a heavy game, and he stepped it up in the last couple of games for the Predators as well. And then Ryan Johansson, 37 points. He's going to be around the 5,000, 4,500 mark. Not an overly expensive guy, because I'm spending my money on Roman Josi on the blue line. That's the guy I'm looking for in this game. 53 points on the season. He's, of course, going to be around $7,000, $7,500, and rightfully so. He's been one of the most dominant defensemen in the NHL this entire season. Look, if it wasn't for Cale Makar and then in second place, Victor Hedman, he's a front runner for the Norris Trophy. He's obviously still in the race. But Cale Makar has just been absolutely too dominant. But again, Roman Josi's right up there. I have to pick him. He's too darn good not to pass up. That's where a lot of my money's going, but I'm spending a lot of my money in the second matchup I have, Flip. But what do you think about that?
I think that, you keep mentioning the games that I like for an over bet in your DFS selections, and I like that. I like that lineup. To me, that makes sense. If you see a game that you think is going to have high scoring, take the forwards from those teams, right? Like, I don't think we really need to overthink this one here. And I see that game being a high scoring game, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. But I also look to a guy who's having a great season as a rookie, Tanner Jeannot. There's going to be some value there down their lineup. And you really were spot on with the analysis with Roman Josi. He's definitely had a huge bounce back season. And he looks rejuvenated. Unfortunately, the Nashville Predators, since the All-Star break, have been not so great. But I think that, they're bouncing back a little bit. And I like this spot for them, definitely. So take a look there. We've talked all day about the value guys on the Seattle Kraken. You know where to go if you're feeling them for some reason. But I would also, stay away from the goalies in this matchup would be my hot tip of the night. I see this being a very high-scoring game, like I said. So what else do you got, Steele? Hit me.
Look, if you don't want to spend your money in that game and you want to go all out, you can spend your money on the Toronto Maple Leafs, Buffalo Sabres lineup. Of course, the top line for the Maple Leafs, they've been absolutely putting pucks in the back of the net. They've got a ton of points. That is not the game I'm actually looking at. I am looking at the St. Louis Blues versus New York Rangers game.
I knew you would.
I usually go with Artemi Panarin and Ryan Strome. I usually pair them up. I'm not going to do this time because they haven't really been as productive as earlier on in the season. I have to go with the top line, Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider. That's where a lot of my money's going to be going. They're going to be over $6,500, rightfully so. Chris Kreider's in the race for the Rocket Richard. Mika Zibanejad, of course, over 50 points on the season. He's been absolutely fantastic for the New York Rangers. I'm going to be spending most of my money there, as well as on Igor Shesterkin and Jacob Trouba. I would like to go with Adam Fox, but those guys are going to be too expensive up front. And I think Jacob Trouba brings a lot of value on the blue line. He's definitely stepped up his game in the last couple of weeks while Adam Fox was out with injury.
That's true.
And then for me, Igor Shesterkin, he is legitimately the best goalie in the NHL right now. It's not even up for debate. He is by far the best goalie right now, and he's going to win the Vezina Trophy.
No debate on Markstrom? No debate?
I think it's over at this point. I watched that entire 1-0 loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins game. He is absolutely playing out of his mind. Jakob Markstrom has been also having an unreal season, but watching Shesterkin play, he's on a different level.
All of Alberta just got fired up, Steele. I agree with you. I'm just trying to poke the bear. I love Shesterkin. And I've made this point before about how I do think, that however they're being referred to by the Olympic Committee, or even if they would be in the next Olympics for obvious reasons right now.
Yeah.
And, this is a hockey show, so we're going to stay away from anything political. But if Russia was in the Olympics with Sorokin and Shesterkin, man, they would be a really tough team to beat, not to mention with all the firepower up front, et cetera, et cetera. But you're spot on there. You might not like my player prop pip in a little bit, but you know what, guys? I know we say this a lot, but seriously, thank you so much for riding with us. This is episode number 25 of the reboot of this show, but Steele and I are just getting warmed up. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for making us your first listen. You know where you can find us. Check us out everywhere you find your favorite content. Make sure you drop us a review. Hit us with that subscribe. Fresh content every single day, Monday to Friday. You know what's coming up now. We're going to wrap the show like we do every single day, Steele. Big time bets, locks of the night. You're rolling again. You're back hot. I love to see it start of the week. My numbers are turning north in a big way. I like what's happening. The pocketbook is getting a little padded. Not a lot. Not going to get too gassed up here. Won't hit my head on the roof getting on the jetpack. But let's dive right into it, brother. Let me hear what you're cooking up in the lab over there for Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's definitely a better start to the week than how we finished it last week.
No kidding.
Rolling into Wednesday night, like we mentioned, 4 games on the schedule. The first game that I'm going with, I mentioned them, but I didn't pick them for DFS selections. It's, of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Buffalo Sabres. Okay. This, for me, is an easy puck line decision right here. I've been absolutely rolling on the puck line. The puck line guru, the puck line king. I've been rolling on these bets. I'm not going to stop now because of what this matchup. I can't stop, Flip.
Can't stop.
It's just too enticing. It's too. Once I see the puck line and what the matchup is, I got to sprinkle some
I just
dough
hope
in there,
you don't get burned, because I've been burned so many times. Whenever it looks too good to be true, Trust me, it's never that good to be true. Although I'm not betting this game, so keep rolling. Sorry.
It hasn't affected me so far.
Sure.
Hopefully it doesn't burn me, but so far I've been burned free. So I got to go with the Maple Leafs puck line versus the Buffalo Sabres. Just the Maple Leafs have been absolutely tearing holes in the back of the net, left, right, center. How many goals are being scored in these games is absolutely ridiculous. I think that's enough said right there because the Maple Leafs just have so much talent up front. Nylander's getting back in the goal column. I'd like to see John Tavares get back in there, but he's been struggling for so long. Who cares if he's struggling? Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Michael Bunting, they're all there to pick up the garbage from him. So it's okay right there. That's my first bet. Flip, where are you looking at?
So you're going Leafs hard puck line against the Sabres. Yeah, I could definitely see it, brother. You could definitely see it. I don't have the cojones to bet against the Leafs right now, and you said all the reasons why. So let's just not jinx it, and let's hope that it goes nicely. Where I'm headed first, I'm going to feed you with a player prop. And you talked about them not exactly producing in on Artemi Panarin and his line mates. I will say this, though. The Breadman is having a sneaky good under the radar season somehow and is leading the Rangers in scoring still. Rangers still have a solid grip on a top 3 Metro spot, but have been sputtering a little bit of late. And you mentioned the struggles, but they are a great home team, 17-5-3, back at home against a very good Blues team. And I've talked about measuring stick games. These are playoff teams. They want to know what they can do against other playoff teams, especially when I think you see the St. Louis Blues have been perennially right at the top of the league over the last number of years, and they're hard to play against. I would expect to see a very good game from the New York Rangers. You mentioned Shesterkin. I think this is a good spot to be taking him DFS-wise. We're on to bet, so let me get rolling here. Artemi Panarin, anytime assist in this game. He has 4 points in his last 5 games, 3 of those assists. And in 16 career regular season games, Breadman has 12 assists. So I'm liking this spot for another Apple-centric night for Artemi Panarin in the Big Apple. Wow, I'm feeling that. What else you got, Steele?
I don't hate that pick. My second actually comes from this game as well, but it's not a player prop. It's the New York Rangers on the money line. They're actually the underdogs in this game, so they're plus 105. I think that's, it's just too juicy not to pass up here. So I got to take the Rangers on the money line. And you said everything right there. Look, the Rangers have lost their last 2 games, but that was a 1-0 loss against the Pittsburgh Penguins and then a 5-2 loss to the Vancouver Canucks where Alexander Georgiev was in that net and he hasn't played as much because Shesterkin's been that good. So
and he hasn't been that great either.
No, exactly. He hasn't been great, but it was a back-to-back. They were on the road. So again, 5-2 loss against Vancouver. I don't put a lot of blame in there.
No.
The Blues, they've won 4 in a row. They've absolutely dominated teams, but the 3 out of those 4 wins have come against teams under 500. So again, this is a very, very good matchup for both squads. See where they're at going into the postseason. I like the Rangers on the money line at plus 105. That's just me, though.
I like the odd, though, for sure. The Blues, we've talked about them way too much, and they are a good team, but I think this is one of those big statement-type games for the Rangers. So, they've lost 2 in a row. Yes, they're still sitting pretty, but that Metro division is full of killers. And if they slip for even a week, they might slip right out of it. So this is a big game at home. They're, home cooking 17-5-3 this year. I mentioned it. So I like that spot for the Rangers in general. I mentioned my Panarin pick. My second pick, and then I'll get to my lock of the night. My second pick is in the LA Kings Dallas Stars game. I don't like betting a lot of unders. For whatever reason, they haven't done super well for me, but I like this spot for an under. Currently sitting at 5.5. I might personally tease this up a little bit to even 6.5 for a lower odd, but everything in this game still is screaming under to me. The Boston Bruins just absolutely pumped the LA Kings the other night, 7-0. And this is a fairly stingy defensive LA Kings unit that only allow a very respectable and 9th best in the league 2.80 goals against. I expect a very, very much better LA Kings defensive performance against the Dallas Stars team that struggles to score. We know this. They're not exactly an offensive juggernaut anymore. 2 more stats to back you up here. The total has gone under the number in 4 of LA's last 5 games in Dallas. and 9 of LA's last 11 games against the Central Division have all stayed under the number. Under 5.5 at minus 101 at the time of this recording. My second bet of the night, Steele.
Look, I'm not going to try to convince you not to do that. For me, it's a coin flip.
Okay. I thought you were going to say your lock of the night was the over, and I was about to hang up.
No, that's not. I'm staying away from this game. No bets for me. That's why I stayed away in the DFS selections. I don't know. For me, everything you just said, there is some stats to back it up. I don't like.
It's a pretty good sell, wasn't it? Pretty good sell.
It's a good sell, but I don't like betting the under in these type of games. After watching that 7-0 blowout for the Boston Bruins, the Stars won 5-3 against the Buffalo Sabres the other day. They don't score a lot of goals. You're absolutely correct with that. But again, I'm gonna have to stay away from the under in this game and just betting in this game at all, because my lock of the night, it's my last pick as well. It's the easy one. I feel like I always do a puck line, a player prop, and then an easy one. It's the Nashville Predators money line against the Seattle Kraken, minus 175 on the money line.
Okay.
Look, it's just too easy because the Seattle Kraken have been so doo-doo this year. You have to go to the Nashville Predators.
They have been. This could be one of the, in my opinion, this is one of, you said the other one was a coin flip. This is a coin flip for me. Whenever a team is this bad, it's like I said before, whenever something looks too good to be true, maybe back up off of it. But my lock of the night is also from this game. Good sir, shocker. Stop stealing my Google links. And it's the over. I touched on it before from the DFS perspective. I really do see a high scoring game here. These two teams, obviously, there's not a lot of track record, but they played twice this season, and both of those games went over the total. So one of those could have been a preseason game, so don't take me to stock on that. But anyway, the Seattle Kraken allow the second most goals against in the NHL with a total of 195. The only team that's allowed more at 198, so really not that much more, is the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah.
So I think that is all you really need to hear when it comes to an over bet. The Nashville Predators can put up crooked numbers as well. It just seems like one of those games that just is going to be high, one of those 6-2, something stupid. So Nashville Predators at Seattle Kraken over 5.5. That number is probably going to creep up, but right now I'm getting 5.5 at minus 120 for Big Flip's lock of the night.
There we go. Both lock of the nights coming from this game. I'm taking the money line, Nashville Predators versus the Seattle Kraken. Flip's taking the over 5.5. It easily could be 6.5 once game day happens. So keep an eye out for that. I like that we're taking the lock of the night in back-to-back days. I absolutely love it. We're on the same page. I love where our heads are at. And look, big-time bets, it's where the money's made. You have to put the bets down to make the money. So that's what Flip and I have done. We've made some decent coin so far this season. We absolutely love it. Thank you so much for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. If you want more gambling advice and what you should pick every day, but not for just hockey, make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, it's hosted by your boy Q with insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all podcast platforms, just like this podcast right here. So please make sure you hit the subscribe, the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the support. And once you do so, you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast as soon as it's available each and every day, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, Monday to Friday. So hit the subscribe, hit the follow. We appreciate all the love out there. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.